Hello and welcome to the Becker County Tour, historical tour, or road show, and sometimes I call it Explore Becker County. Today we are in Wolf Lake at the home of Paul and Joyce Ramsay, talking about the early days of Wolf Lake. It's always been a fascinating place to me.
Good.
And I understand that you had your centennial celebration in 1998, I believe, or 96.
That could be, I can't
Well,
remember. Anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
It was back here a few years back when the township had it.
The township.
And the city, I think, is coming up with some kind of a celebration again.
They are.
Yeah. And I can't remember exactly what, I think they were incorporated in 1948, so the city will be having, 60 years?
60 years. Oh, next year.
Yeah, in 1990, yeah, something like that.
Okay.
Right.
I've always been curious, many of the names end in E-N, the last names. There's Kennanen, Madigan, and what does that mean?
I don't know what the EN means, but it is a Finnish, Wolf Lake is basically a little Finnish community, although that around Wolf Lake, the township of Wolf Lake is predominantly Finnish. The township of Toad Lake, as you probably know, which is right adjacent, is German. The township north of, Wolf Lake is split actually into two townships, or was originally, between Spruce Grove Township and Wolf Lake Township. And if you go into Spruce Grove Township, then you have the Norwegians and a few Swedes. So in Wolf Lake, many generations ago, you could hear Finnish, German, and Norwegian or Swede, depending on, and this was when I was a child, I think even back in the 40s, they were still, many of the natives were speaking their native tongue. Now you don't hear it very often. You hear Finnish probably more often than you do with the other languages.
I know that some of the church services at the apostolic churches, they're speaking Finnish.
Right. They do have a special Finnish service for those older folk that enjoy hearing their language, although most people, I think, in our area now are bilingual, so there isn't as much of the native tongue being spoken.
Okay. Wolf Lake is one of the small communities that's survived as best it could. Can you tell us anything about what it was like when you were growing up in the 40s, 50s?
Right. In the heyday, which was the heyday, is when it actually became a city, and I understand it's one of the smallest cities in the state of Minnesota. I believe that was back in like 1948. They incorporated, and at that time, I think the census was like they say at 103 plus, whatever they meant by plus. I don't know if that meant the dogs and the cats and everybody else, but anyway, it was around that time. And they were even contemplating that it should have a bank and a doctor and all these kind of things. At that particular time, it was basically a town that had mainly businesses, actually. And it had several grocery stores, it had a bakery, it had a couple of garages, it had several taverns, a couple of restaurants, it had one church, and so it was a thriving little community, and mainly the business came in because of the creamery and the locker plant, because we did have a lot of small farms in the area that brought in their cream, and they made butter here, and it was quite famous for their butter making thing at the creamery, and they had their own label and whatnot also, right? And I really don't know, then as the city, I guess it was because of the roads maybe. At that time the roads were basically gravel, and I think about in the 50s sometime, it got to be to a point where they made paved roads, and once the roads became paved in our area, then people started to drift away. And then of course the economy came, that people went to the bigger cities, and now they seem to be coming back, which is kind of interesting.
Well, when they annexed in area, that was really something. And I think the most famous store, I came here into the area in the 60s, was Keenan's? How do you
It's
say
Kinnunen,
that? Kinnunen?
Kinnunen store. That was my in my family. Actually, my uncle or great uncle started it, and then my grandfather bought it in about 1912, and it was in the family until 1995. Run by family members. My mother was the last owner, and we finally closed the store in 1995, and we had several auction sales after that to go on with the sales. So it has a place in the area, and people seem to always remember it.
Oh, absolutely. Anything you wanted was there, and especially if it was from days gone by. One thing I'm just going to mention as time wraps up is that I read in the Wilcox book that Workinen was the first person to move in 1888, and it took him 6 weeks to get here
Right.
from New York Mills.
That's right. My grandfather came 2 weeks later and was on another point. The Workinen farm is right across the bay here.
Oh, that's where it is.
And my grandfather's farm was across the other way. Actually, it was my great-grandfather, Abel Kinnunen, came in 1981.
Okay.
And so they've, since that time, my other grandfather from my mother's side of the family also homesteaded in Wolf Lake Township. So I have relatives at both ends of the township.
Oh, that's great. I've learned so much about the town. I had all these questions. I would love to sit and visit forever about it. But for now, this is our visit with Wolf Lake Township, and the first weekend in August, you always have harvest days.
Right.
And so come on out. They have bands and parades, and it's a wonderful time. And let's not forget the baseball team.
Right. The baseball team usually goes to the state tournament nearly every year. The baseball field happens to be right here and adjacent to our property. It has been around here, I understand, since probably the late 40s. It was started basically by the Kangas family,
Sure.
who had 9 boys, and they all played on the team, and some of the grandchildren are still playing on the baseball team.
It's a wonderful community. Thank you for listening to us today. And thank you, Joyce Ramsay, for being with me and answering my questions.
My pleasure.